Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back to some more Planet Coaster with Fraggle. And today I'm going to do something slightly different. I'm not going to, well, technically I'm going to build something in front of you, but I'm also going to talk about roller coaster physics. Now, roller coasters are fun. They're pretty simple in their nature, but really complex when you look at them from a physics point of view. But let's try and start at the beginning. And I'm no physics major, so I may get some of this wrong. But hey, the basic understanding is better than none, right? So let's start with energy. A roller coaster car needs energy to move. This is usually applied in a few different ways. But just for the moment, let's just focus on a very simple lift-hill type. As a roller coaster car rises up a lift hill, it gains what's called potential energy. The amount of potential energy that can be gained can be calculated in a formula that uses the car's mass and the height of the car above the ground. Once the car reaches the top, it's accumulated all the potential energy it can. And unless there's some kind of mechanical device in the track somewhere, it can never gain any more energy than it has at that point. As the car travels down the first drop, that potential energy is converted into kinetic energy. And once the car reaches the bottom of the hill, or the bottommost point in the track, it now has no more potential energy. All of that potential energy has been converted into kinetic energy. And of course, the reverse happens when the car climbs up another hill. The kinetic energy goes away and it's converted back into potential energy. But there's a catch. Not all the energy is converted. Some energy is lost due to friction. So what is friction and where does it come from? Well, first of all, friction is a force exerted by a surface as an object moves across it. Although it's not always the case, the friction force opposes the motion of an object. Friction results from the two surfaces being pressed together closely, causing intermolecular attractive forces between the molecules of the different surfaces. Some long words there. Basically, they want to stick together. As such, the friction depends upon the nature of the two surfaces and upon the degree to which they are being pressed together. So, if you put your hands together lightly, they'll move backwards and forwards really easily. But if you put them together hard and squash them together, it's a lot more difficult to move them backwards and forwards. That's what we're getting at. And of course, the difficulty to move your hand depends upon the other object which you're pressing your hand upon. So if you push your hand on a piece of glass, it moves pretty okay. But if you put your hand on, say, some asphalt, which is a very, very rough surface, it's a lot more difficult for you to move your hand around, and probably painful too. In the case of roller coaster wheels, or rather roller coaster cars, the wheels, or more precisely the bearings in the wheels, are contacting surfaces. There is actually a standard friction equation for this kind of thing, and it's still very complicated. Another source of friction is obviously the air itself, although this is somewhat negligible in the case of a roller coaster, but it does play a very, very small role. However, it's small enough that it's really not worth us worrying about, especially in the case of a simulator. Now, our problem comes from the wheels. So let's take a basic looping coaster on tube track. One car, in general, has 4 mount points, and each mount point has usually 6 wheels. The 2 big, large main wheels on the top that the car rides upon, and then usually it has 2 on the bottom that keep the car from lifting off the track, and then 2 on the side that stop it from obviously sliding side to side and off the track. Okay, keeping it centered on the track. On straight and level track, only 8 wheels will be contacting the track, right? Because there's 4 lots of these wheel assemblies. Okay? So only 8 wheels will be contacting the track, and as it enters a corner, 4 more wheels will start to come into play, because the car is because the car is going around a flat corner. The 2 side wheels are now contacting the track. So the coaster car is now going to experience more friction as the number of wheels in play increases from 8 to 12. 8 of which are experiencing the downforce, and 4 are experiencing the lateral force. And of course, depending on how fast the car is going around the corner, or how tight the corner is, the amount of lateral force is going to go up or down, which will increase the amount of friction up or down, depending. Now, when the car makes a 45-degree bank or more on straight track, the amount of friction experienced goes up as the weight is transferred towards the side wheels and away from the top wheels. So you end up in the same situation as you would when the car is going around a corner. But potentially, because it's a 45-degree angle, you have to take into account the amount of weight that's being placed upon the wheels. Now, the top wheels on a roller coaster car are designed to take the brunt of the force. They are usually bigger wheels. They usually have been greased a great deal more. They have more bearings in them, which is more surface area, because obviously the bigger the bearing, the more area you have to put the little ball bearings or whatever inside, which means you have a greater surface area to spread out all that mass or all that weight. So the amount of friction per bearing touching is lower, right? Okay. We also have to remember the cost and energy to transform the state of those wheels from not spinning to spinning. Because getting an object to move means overcoming friction to begin with, right? If you take your hand and you place it on the table, the amount of force it takes to start moving your hand is more than it takes to continually move your hand, right? If you get a force gauge or something, you can actually see this happening. Or even just a fishing weight would actually show you the same principle. The amount of friction it takes to start an object moving is more than it takes to keep an object moving. Okay? Okay. But there's something else. Noise. You can easily tell how much friction a roller coaster car is dealing with by the amount of noise it's making. When it's coasting quietly along on a straight level track, it's not really experiencing a great deal of friction because it's not making a great deal of noise, relatively speaking. When it's in a really high banking corner, or you can hear it from the other side of the park, it's experiencing a great deal of friction. And also remember that noise is energy, and that is energy that is being lost. Remember the car at the top of the lift hill? All that energy being converted into noise? Well, not all of it, but a fraction of that energy is being lost as noise. So all that noise you hear is that potential energy from the lift hill escaping. And of course, where there's noise, there's often heat too. Although we generally don't see it, the bearings inside those car wheels do actually heat up as the friction builds up, of course. Friction has lots of side effects, and one of them is heat. But with the judicial application of some special oils, lubricants, and other sticky materials, we can probably assume that they won't actually melt. Although, if you look at the news, there have been cases where they have done that. I believe my second trip on the Goliath in California was cut short because one of the wheels got stuck because it wasn't greased properly, or I think the heat from the sun actually had baked the track to the point where the lubricant had melted away, or just, as you warm up a lubricant, it becomes more viscous, or it's less viscous, sorry, so it becomes more runny. And anyway, the wheel just locked up, and we couldn't ride on that for like an hour while I pulled that car off and replaced it. Anyway, but even with all those lubricants and special greasiness, they still get hot. But not hot enough, usually, to melt and weld the bearings shut. Or not shut, but inoperable. And, of course, heat. That's more energy that's being lost. Well, I think that about covers the basics. Yeah. So, I've been looking at this particular track, and I did notice, I don't know if I left it in the video because I'm actually recording this without watching it, but I did notice one odd side effect of this new adjustment. This whole idea of being able to adjust the track up to and beyond 90 degrees. So technically you can have the track curve back over itself. What I did here in this one is I actually had the track come back over, curve over itself, and then twist so it was the right way up. That's got a special name, I can't remember what loop name that is. But when I went to apply another preset twist, I did discover that the twist was being applied to the track backwards. And it took me a minute to figure out what was happening. It's because I had done that track, bent that track upwards to the point where it was bending back on itself. And apparently the game engine didn't like that. So I had to go back and readjust it. But anyway, I'm sure you probably saw that in this video by this point. If not, I'll slow it down. You can watch me trying to figure out what the heck is going on. But that's it for the minute. I am going to play some more with this particular layout. I would like to apply some theming to it that is not pirate oriented. So I may actually wait. Well, no, I can't, because then I'll be out walking outside my quarter park parameter update thing. So I guess I'll have to do trees and pirate themed materials along this piece of track as well. Anyway, that's it for the moment. If you have any questions or anything, shout. But for the moment, I will see you anon.